Adjust your shoulder pads, crank up that Cyndi Lauper, and light up a smoke wherever you damn well please. Stranger Things 3 is here, and in this guy's opinion, it's the best one yet. Let's get started. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Hello, Right Side Up world. Welcome to Thumb Together TV. My name is Andrew Fantasia, and today we're going to be talking about Stranger Things 3 together. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and give some love to that subscribe button as well. Stranger Things is a miracle. It's just a miracle of a show. It rocked everybody's socks off 2 times in a row, and now the 3rd time in a row, it's doing it again, even better. Like I said, this is my favorite season of Stranger Things, and I'm going to get into why. But first and foremost, this is going to be a review full of spoilers, so all the spoilers are around. If you haven't watched the show, don't watch this till you watch the show, or otherwise you're going to be mad at me, and that'll be good for nobody. So, there. I really dig the idea of setting this film in the summer. And, you know, it's coming out on the 4th of July, which is pretty much the most summery day in summer. It works well, especially because season 1 was around Christmas time, season 2 was around Halloween, so it makes sense. Stick this one in the summer. We haven't seen Hawkins in the summertime yet. And because of that, Stranger Things 3 has, I think, the widest, most diverse color palette of all 3 seasons. Like, this season is beautifully colored. There's so much color going on. First of all, just look at this poster. I mean, all the Stranger Things posters are phenomenal. Like, whoever does the hand-painted posters still, God bless you. God bless you and your art. But this poster is really indicative of what you're going to see, because this season is all about bright, vivid colors and neon and just the 80s glamour and glitz that, you know, the decade was known for. It's set in 1985, so we're right smack dab in the middle of the decade of excess. So because of that, not only is it the most colorful, but I also feel like it's the most 80s season we've had so far. I mean, this shot alone is the most 80s image you'll ever find, period. So there you go. Now the Mind Flayer is back, and he is scarier than ever because he's like here in our world in the flesh. Like, you can reach out and touch him, but you probably wouldn't want to. He does not have good plans for humanity. And Starcourt Mall was an amazing addition to the show. Starcourt Mall is just this glorious neon lit touchstone of 80s super Western culture, just jammed together in one glorious space. I love Starcourt so much. I wanted to see more inside the mall. We don't really get a whole lot until closer to the end, but I was just like, show me this store, show me that store, show me the old logos for all these old things. As soon as I saw the mall in the trailers, I was ready and hooked at that point. But let's cut to the chase here. What made this the best season of Stranger Things for me? I think what did the trick was this felt the most epic. It felt the most like an epic 80s movie, at least more so than the other ones. Season 1, even though I love it, is quieter, more subdued. It's much more of like a drama thriller. Like, there is a missing child. It is some scary shit. Season 1 feels like a quieter horror thriller, like something like Poltergeist or something like that. Season 2 ups that a little bit and adds a lot more mythology and everything, but it really does feel like a very similar sequel to season 1. It feels like it just kind of runs right into each other, that they are one big story broken into 2 seasons. Season 3 feels sort of separated from those 2. It feels like it's just like a whole new fresh start. It feels the most like a blockbuster, like a giant candy-colored blockbuster where, yes, it's scary and yes, there are frightening monsters, but it's not really about, you know, this small-town horror that the first one was. This is about like giant Cold War, America versus Russia, Independence Day, colorful fireworks, a giant spider monster in a big neon mall. Like, this is everything an 80s blockbuster would have normally been, just here on Netflix with good special effects and even better acting. The end of this season also marks the first time in the entire series where you have all of the main kids, the main hero kids, together fighting the monsters who are terrorizing their town. 11, Mike, Will, Lucas, Dustin, Steve, Jonathan, and Nancy, and Max, all of them are together in one spot. And that is very rare. I mean, in season 1, Will was never around because he was missing. That was the point. In season 2, Will was like possessed all the time, most of the time, so he was kind of always separate from everyone else. 11 was never with them until the final episode, and even then they were kind of scattered. So finally, after 3 full seasons, we finally get an episode right at the end where everybody's together, and my God, is that ever satisfying. These people really do feel like a jacked up, roided out, telekinetic version of the Goonies. And imagine if in the Goonies they had always been separated until right at the end. It wouldn't feel as satisfying, would it? But the other reason that I love this season so much is because it feels like a real game changer. And in order to talk about that, we gotta talk about the really spoilery stuff at the end here. So if you didn't heed my warning before, my God, what are you still doing here? Starcourt Mall being a front for the Russians to open up a tear in the fabric of the universes there was brilliant. It turned this, giant monolith of American consumerism into this seedy sort of, villainous facade for something even more sinister. There's essays that need to be written about the beautiful simplicity of Starcourt Mall being a front for the Russians trying to do evil things. I don't have time to get into that here, but there are essays about that just rolling around in my brain that I need to spit out eventually. But with Starcourt being destroyed at the end of it all, you would think that would mean Hawkins is going to go back to the way it used to be, more of a small town that doesn't have a giant mall and a giant carnival and whatnot. But that's actually not the case. Hawkins is never going to be the same. And the reason why is, for starters, now for the first time, the monsters and the other worlds and the upside downs and everything, all of that conspiracy and government secrecy, that's all finally out in the open. It's public knowledge now. Now Mike's dad finally knows that there's shit going down in his town. He's not ignorant anymore. Nobody's ignorant anymore. Everybody knows. On top of that, we lost Jim Hopper. Jim Hopper got disintegrated when the thing exploded. Now, without a sheriff in town, the town is definitely never going to be the same. And of course, having had enough of all this craziness, Joyce Byers decides to just pack up, take her family, and leave. And that is the most heartbreaking moment of the end of this season for me, because we spent so long trying to get these kids together and rekindle the happy childhood that we saw for a fraction of a scene way back at the beginning of season 1. And now it doesn't look like that's going to be the case anymore, because Will Byers has to leave town. So that brings me to the final segment of this review here, because I want to talk about what are we going to see in Stranger Things 4. First of all, we know it's coming. The showrunners have said that there will be a season 4, possibly a 5, but that'll be it. That'll go maximum 5. So we are getting at least one more season. What are we going to see in Stranger Things 4, though? What's that going to look like? Well, like I said, it's going to look like a very different Hawkins. I guarantee you, one of the first people they're going to be casting for in the new season is a new actor or actress to step into the role of Sheriff of Hawkins. Because guess what? Somebody has to take Jim Hopper's place. And I guarantee you, that new sheriff is probably going to be corrupt. I can totally see a world where that happens, where the people from the laboratories and such, they didn't like that Jim Hopper was always on to them and always sniffing around and uncovering their secrets. So they would see this power vacuum as a way to be like, okay, let's get somebody in that sheriff spot who's in our pocket. Let's get somebody who's not going to sniff at our heels when we start doing crazy witchcraft and underground tunnels and monster gates and shit. Let's just get somebody who's going to ignore that all completely. I wouldn't be surprised if the human villain of Stranger Things 4 is that sheriff character, whoever it may be. And I really hope they do some more like 80s stunt casting like they did when they cast Sean Astin in season 2. Get us somebody who was a big 80s actor and get them in that role, because I think that would be tons of fun. What's Corey Feldman doing these days? Get Corey Feldman to be the new sheriff. Or like Leah Thompson. Is she working? Put Leah Thompson in the sheriff role. Somebody big from that decade. What will the monster be in Stranger Things 4? Well, we saw that back in the USSR, the Russians have a Demogorgon of their very own. They've got a full-on Demogorgon, not even a Demodog, a Demogorgon. And he's eating people's faces underneath the prison. Speaking of that prison, they also have an American prisoner who we don't see. We just know they are American. Word on the street, the cool street that I hang out on after hours, it's more of a cul-de-sac, really. Nobody really walks there. Is that the American is none other than Jim Hopper, and he somehow survived the explosion and was taken away by the Russians. That's a popular theory, and I understand why it's popular, because we all love Jim Hopper, and it was really sad to see him die. and it would be cool if he was alive, but I don't like that fake out. I really don't. He was standing right in front of that oscillator when it blew up. I'm just imagining them trying to somehow justify him being like, oh, I dived away at the last second and then the Russians got me, yay. It would just lessen so much of the beautiful emotional impact that the end of season 3 had. I really, really hope it's not Jim Hopper at all. I hope it's like another person like 11 and 8, like somebody with the tattoo who's got a superpower, who's just stuck in that prison because the Russians caught them and took them away or something. Let Jim Hopper rest in peace. Let him rest in peace. Let that beautiful send-off we got here be the send-off for this character. He is a great character. He will be missed, but I really hope it's not Jim Hopper in there. I don't think they mention where the Byers moved to, but that's also going to be an interesting story to tell because Joyce adopted 11, since her other adopted parent is now dead. So now Joyce, Jonathan, Will, and 11 are their own family, and they have moved away to who knows where. So I think that'll be an interesting dynamic to see moving forward. In Stranger Things 4, we're going to have 3 different storylines going on. We're going to have the people of Hawkins dealing with what Hawkins is like now, dealing with this new sheriff who's totally going to be a bad guy. I can just smell it. We're going to have the people of Russia with this American prisoner and this Demogorgon that they have underground. And we're going to have the Byers family doing their own thing somewhere else. And at some point, these 3 storylines are going to have to converge. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't mind a little bit of a longer season. I wouldn't mind 10 episodes. I know people complained for some weird reason, because people love to complain about stuff, when season 2 ended up being 9 episodes instead of 8. I thought that was fine with me. I mean, if you want to pad it out a little bit more because you have more story to tell, just tell the rest of the story. I'm not going to complain if you give me 2 more hours of content, Netflix. I'm also going to assume that Stranger Things 4 takes place in 1986 because every season has taken place in a different year. So with that being the case, 11 has lived with the Byers now for maybe about 5-6 months. She is now an integrated member of the Byers family. So it's going to be really interesting to see Jonathan, Will, and 11 acting like siblings. It's going to be interesting seeing Will and 11 have like a sibling back and forth. Remember, Will and 11 never interacted once until season 3. They met sort of on the upside down in season 1, but never face to face. Same thing with season 2. In season 3, they finally are friends. They're part of the same group of friends. But even then, their interactions were scarce. So it's going to be really interesting to see these 2 characters who have never really been together all that much suddenly be forced into being a family. That's what made it so interesting in season 2 when we saw that 11 was living with Jim Hopper. Because in season 1, Jim Hopper I don't think he exchanged 3 words with 11 the entire time. He was, unconcerned with the kids. He was just doing his own thing, trying to find Will, being a cop, shooting demogorgons, beating up scientists, all that fun stuff. So when we saw the opening of season 2 and he's got like 11 living in his house, that was a really cool concept because we're like, oh, these 2 characters that never really met or hung out, suddenly they're tight now. And that's what I want to see in season 4 with Will and 11. I want to see that brother-sister dynamic where it's like they've been isolated from all their friends in Hawkins, so now they are all they have. They only have each other and Jonathan. So I want to see that dynamic come forth and see, what that relationship turns into. And then seeing those all come together with some kind of crazy confrontation, battle royale with some monster or another. I'm assuming the Demogorgon's going to come to the States. I just don't know how. Maybe the American prisoner has the power of teleportation. So they escape and they try to teleport, but at the last second the Demogorgon grabs them and they teleport to the States with the Demogorgon hanging onto their arm or something. But that's what I think Stranger Things 4 is going to look like, and that's how I feel about Stranger Things 3. What an excellent, beautiful, hot summer candy color season that was. I can't wait to see more of this story, and I can't wait to see more Stranger Things stuff in other media. I heard there's comics, but I heard they're not that great. I heard there's novels, which are supposed to be kind of good. There's a video game that came out for this season that looks okay, but kind of cheap. Personally, I want to know who I have to sleep with to get a Stranger Things board game. Like a really nice, detailed Stranger Things board game. Whoever I got to sleep with, we're making it happen. But that is Stranger Things 3. My name is Andrew Fantasia. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you here next time, and until then, adios.